The second person who you see, who is instantly confrontational with Mr. Efron, is the defendant, Mr. Mayers. During the period of time that they are off screen is when the defendant first produces that semi-automatic pistol.
Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about one man's jealousy, lies, and greed. And that man is not Rakim Mayers. That man is Terrell Efron, or you've heard the name, Beverly. He is the source of all the evidence in this case. All that.
The felony assault trial for hip-hop star A$AP Rocky is what's trending in true crime. His testimony resumes later today in Los Angeles. During the opening statements, the state presented a glimpse for the jury into the evidence that was collected against the Grammy-nominated rapper, which included a 911 call from that night and surveillance footage of the incident in question. Now, the defense team claims that the gun seen in the footage was a prop gun, saying that Rocky only fired the gun to scare off alleged victim Terrell Efron, or A$AP Rocky. Now, according to responding officers, no signs of a shooting were found. So this morning, we're wondering, where's the gun? Let's bring in our firearms expert. He's a former special agent and supervisor with the Department of Homeland Security, Dr. Jayne Piccolo. Dr. Jayne, good morning to you. So it seems that there could be two scenarios going on. Either it's a real gun and Rocky's a real bad shot and he misses and grazes this kid's knuckles, or it's a prop gun, didn't fire at him, or, fired and blanks, came out, nothing hit him, and this kid faked that injury. What do you think might have happened?
It would be stupid to carry a prop gun in real life, because if you're using it for protection and someone else has a gun and you pull out a prop gun, then you are going to be shot, maybe, and die. So don't use a prop gun. And I don't, in this circumstance, we'll have to see what the actual weapon, if they do produce one later on, which I don't think they will, is a prop weapon.
Right. Oh, I couldn't agree with you more, Dr. Jayne. You teach courses on firearm safety and training and self-defense, and prop gun's not the way to do it. And his lawyers even noted that he was licensed to carry a firearm, so no prior criminal history. It would be lawful for him to go and do that. Why wouldn't he be? So let me play a clip for you, Dr. Jayne. This is where the state of California, in their opening statement, is describing the moments that led up to what they say was the shooting.
Mr. Efron will tell you that during the period of time that they are off screen is when the defendant first produces that semi-automatic pistol from his waistband. That at the time that he was pointing the gun at Mr. Efron, he was also threatening Mr. Efron. I'm gonna kill you.
Okay, so Mr. Efron, also known by his stage name A$AP Rocky, they're part of the same collective as we know, the A$AP crew. He collects spent cartridge casings, so he says, and brings them to police, because we know the first responders didn't see any evidence that anybody left any brass behind. Dr. Jayne, what do you say about that? The likelihood that this crime victim, if he is one, collected the evidence himself and took it upon himself to put it in the hands of detectives?
Well, there's an issue with that. In law enforcement, and you know this as well, you need a chain of custody. Now, you need to identify where you grabbed that evidence, how you collected it, and who was involved with carrying that evidence from point A to point B to point C. Now, you were saying that you have two shell casings. How do we know you got it from there, and how do we know you did just go to a gun range and get them or collect them from some other source? So that's the biggest issue with that, is the chain of custody.
Right, right. And Dr. Jayne, you always take us to school. I understand you may have some props with you today. Anything we can take a look at that might be helpful for investigators in determining whether or not these spent cartridge casings came from any gun belonging to A$AP Rocky?
Well, the issue is, let's say we can get that evidence in there. Let's say we say that they are real shell casings. The issue with the blank firing weapon, if the A$AP Rocky says he was carrying that, is that a real bullet, let me try to focus that, has a projectile. Yeah, has a projectile on it. And the bottom part of that is the casing. Now, in a blank firing weapon, you will not have a projectile. You'll have an empty casing. So if he brought forward 2 real live bullet casings, you would absolutely see that they are not blank firing casings. So that's going to be the biggest issue there, if they can get the shell casings in there. So let me bring that back up. The tip of that bullet.
Yes. Okay, wait, so let me just chime out to make sure. Okay, so what you're saying is, if the state can authenticate this evidence, right, if they can get past the chain of custody issue, which you said about, you know, this alleged victim grabbing them rather than a detective or Sergeant Thomas Zizzo, who we're going to talk about in a minute, the first witness called, if they get them in, you're saying you can tell whether they came from an actual firearm or a prop firearm.
Oh, absolutely. You see that the front part of that projectile, or the bullet, that's the projectile that will fire out of a weapon. Now, if you're shooting this and that projectile comes out, it will leave that back part, which is the casing. Now, you could absolutely tell that if it was a blank firing or if it was a real bullet by the casing itself. So I'd love to see these casings that they have in evidence right now.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Jason, we're going to have to do part 2 with you once they get that introduced and have you take a look and see what you think. So all of this being said here, does it seem to you that a real gun was fired?
Oh, in my personal opinion, yes, a real gun was fired. If a real gun was produced and they could authenticate that those were gunshots in the videos, then yes, absolutely, in my opinion, that was a real gun used.
Excellent information from you. As always, Dr. Jason Piccolo, thank you so much. Now, let's talk about the other big thing getting attention with this case this morning, and that is the first witness called to the stand in the state's case, LAPD Sergeant Thomas Zizzo. So Zizzo is the son of Bravo's Real Housewives of Beverly Hills star Erika Jayne. And Zizzo also responded, to that shooting of Terrell Efron, allegedly, back in 2021, or ASAP rally. So that's why he was the first witness called by the state. He was the first witness called to that, or the first officer called to that scene. We have a clip from him. Let's take a listen to some of what he said.
You were searched for signs of shooting, right? Correct. All right. You didn't find any broken glass? No. No damaged doors? No. No bullet holes? No. You established no shell casings? Correct. No blood? Correct. In fact, you didn't find any signs of shooting, right? Correct.
All right, so Sergeant Thomas Zizzo not done yet. He started his testimony on Friday as the first witness called by the state of California, and now he's going to continue today and be cross-examined some more by ASAP Rocky's defense team. And just the fact that he was called and just his relationship with Real Housewives of Beverly Hills star Erika Jayne has people in Hollywood talking. So what's everybody saying? Let's bring in someone in the know. I see he's the leading authority on all things Housewives. He's the host of the podcast No Filter. Zack Peter is with us. Zack, good morning to you. What's the good word in Hollywood?
I mean, I have to say, the internet especially is on fire. Nobody had this on their bingo card. It kind of feels like that's the theme of 2025, but everyone was like, Erika Jayne's son, ASAP Rocky, like we're trying to connect the dots because we didn't see these two worlds colliding.
Right, Zack. And so then once everybody figured out, oh my gosh, that's who he is, it's like everybody couldn't stop watching him, right? Because we don't typically see him on the show, do we?
No, what we've seen on Housewives with Erika Jayne is that she's kept him more private. You know, we've seen a couple of scenes where she'll talk about him and being an officer, and you know, we see her kind of let her guard down as a mom that worries with her son, you know, out on the front lines risking his life to keep us safe. But for the most part, she doesn't even really post about him on social media. So the fact that we're really kind of seeing him speak for the first time, because we've never really watched him on the show, and you know, a lot of Bravo accounts are like, wow, we've never heard from Tommy, and now I think, you know, he's become a hunky new heartthrob on Instagram.
Right. He's handsome. He's a ranking officer. He's a sergeant. You know, Zack, you know Erika Jayne. You've interviewed her before. I would think that this has to be such a proud mama moment for her. Her son, who's a real life hero, getting called first out of the gate. You know, with trials, you want to call your best witnesses first and last so that the jury has that great impression, the primacy and the recency. And the fact that they started with him, I think, really says a lot.
It does. You know, like you said, they lead and they end with their strongest witnesses. So obviously, Tommy's going to be crucial in this case. And I think, you know, she's always been very proud of him. We've seen her speak very highly of Tommy on the show. And I would imagine now that the public is kind of getting a peek at him with his uniform on, and we're seeing him on the, you know, on the front lines in this case. And so far from what I've seen online with Bravo fans, they've been really positive. And even some people are like, okay, I'm glad we get to see him, but like, let's remember that, like, you know, she does want to keep his privacy, you know, a top priority for them, because obviously as a mom, you want to protect your kids as much as possible. But I think the reception that people have had to him and seeing his involvement in the case has been really positive. So, you know, I would imagine she's very proud of her son.
Right. Oh, I'm sure, Zach. And I like what you said there about how she's protective of him, no matter how old your children are or how tough they are and strong they are. You know, you're always a mom, right? And I would think he's probably protective of her too. Do you know how he treats her?
Oh, absolutely. He's, you know, very protective of her. I know he checks on her and likes to make sure that she's, I mean, listen, when you're a cop and you kind of see some of the, you know, what goes on in the shadows of Los Angeles, I would imagine now that he's much older, you know, he wants to protect mom a lot more. And I know that she's, you know, they have a very special bond, which is sweet.
Right. No, it is. And how old are they, Zach? Because they look like they could be siblings.
They do look like they could be siblings. I know he's now, I want to say in his mid to late 30s.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
he's, you know, he's a big boy now. He's grown.
Sure.
He's not the little boy that she was raising growing up.
Sure. No, definitely. You know, beautiful people, beautiful mother and son. And tell me, do you think this could possibly wind up in the show, Zach? Before we let you go, I want to ask you, do you think that Bravo could make a storyline out of this with Erika Jayne and maybe the proud mama moment of seeing her son in this big trial that people around the world are watching?
You would think so, because I know in the past we have, like, when, you know, Lisa Rinna's daughter was dating Scott Disick, like that became a talking point. So the Housewives tend to bring these things up, but unfortunately they're not in production. We have the new season of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills that's airing right now, so they probably won't go into production for the next season until late summer. So I would imagine this either gets completely glossed over or we might not even see it on the show at all.
Oh, I gotcha. Well, Zach, next time you talk to Erika Jayne, tell her all of us from Court TV thank her son for his service, and we'll see him more this morning. Zack Peter, thank you. And my friends at home, check out Zach's podcast, No Filter with Zack Peter. Zach, we'll see you soon.